Everyone in Silicon Valley is chasing the next big thing. AI agents, crypto, the metaverse. But Shawn Carolan has spent the last 2 decades studying what never changes: human needs.
From a behavioral perspective, basically the same humans we've been for, some would argue, 50,000 to 100,000 years.
At Menlo Ventures, he has backed iconic consumer companies like Uber, Roku, Siri, and Chime. Products that became part of everyday life because they solved something timeless.
That whole consumer wallet has essentially stayed the same forever. But what changes is these underlying, we call them ingredient technologies, that change the playing field.
In this episode, Shawn unpacks why some consumer products change the world and why others fade as fast as they trend.
I think one of the harder lessons I've learned over the years is be a student of consumer companies as opposed to just assess it on your own.
We talked about how he applies this lens to AI, how AI is shifting consumer behavior, and what he's looking for in the next wave of magical AI consumer products. Shawn, welcome to the show.
Enzo, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. Shawn, you've built quite a career investing in consumer, but I'm curious, what about your own life story reflects in your investment style? So I wanted to start by asking you, when's the first time you recall being amazed by a product where you were actually conscious that, okay, this is like a magical product experience, maybe as a teenager, a kid, or even later on in life?
So there's sort of the literal answer. The earliest one I can remember was this, it was called the 255 Computer Command Corvette. And it was like a little toy car, and you'd flip up the hood, and there was turn left, turn right, go forward, stop, pause, flashlights, and then you'd hit go, and it would just go off on its thing. And I love that thing. I don't know, when you're a kid, you kind of grasp at little pieces of power. Uh-huh. But I remember just being so delighted by that. But I was thinking there's actually been a lot of them over the years, and that, I think, is part of what has shaped me as a consumer investor. Is you have to love to try new things. And then it's kind of like you see different things every day, and then every once in a while, something will be like, ooh, this feels special.
Okay.
And if you're not trying all sorts of different things all the time, then it doesn't feel that way. So Speak and Spell was this very early interactive spelling device. Apple IIe was the first computer I learned how to program on, kind of circa grade school. Sony Walkman, first MP3 player. I mean, there's been so many things along the way where I'm like, wow, this is new and different and better. And that's actually kind of shaped my investment philosophy, which I know we're going to get to in a bit.
I want to understand how you go from that spark to actually, making an investment decision, right?
Yeah.
And I say that in the context that most people have had those experiences. I know everyone has invested in Uber, Roku, and all the other successful consumer companies you've invested. So there's definitely something about the way in which you process those moments. I guess if you had to put it into words, what happens in your mind, your body, when you have those moments?
Yeah. So like you say, it does. So maybe two things. One is you have to be careful as a consumer investor not to just index on what you love. It's pretty easy to fall into that trap. And look, I'm a 50-year-old white man, relatively high socioeconomic status. I live in the US, right? There's all of these biases that just come within me. So I think one of the harder lessons I've learned over the years is be a student of consumer companies as opposed to just assess it on your own.
Okay.
When you hear about it a couple times, then you take on the learner's mindset. What is it about this I'm not seeing? Let me talk to some of the users, see the value that you're getting, and really dig into the why they're using it and what it replaced in their life. But certainly some of the companies that I've invested in, I've used, and I've loved, Uber was probably, this one where I'd heard about it. I was a couple blocks away in San Francisco, download the app, push the button on my phone. By the time I walked down to the street, I was on the second floor. The car was there, door was open. And that was the last cab I ever took in San Francisco, right? Circa 2011. So I think it's the match. If it's one that falls into my sweet spot of like a product that I would use, it's that match of, wow, this is delightful and solves a problem, an actual problem. There's a lot of things that are novel, but don't solve real problems. So there's that. And then also, I think as life shapes you, and you see a ton of, I've been investing now 23 years. You see just a lot of examples of businesses that work or not. So it's mashing up a great product with what can grow into a great business. Some to do with fundamental unit economics of the business, some to do with behavior patterns, some to do with the industry structures. And so it's wading through all that morass to figure out, okay, is this going to be the one of the ones that can get really big? And then some amount of what's the roadmap, understanding the technology. Where can you take this thing? Let's just say you succeed in this one small thing. Where can it go over time?
I heard this funny story that you have a video where you were interviewed as a kid and you say that you wanted to be the voice of the common man. Tell us that story.
A good one to dig up.
Because I think it reflects a lot in your investing.
Yeah. I remember there was a newspaper article that like covered that. And I'd won some like science award. I was a good math and science student. And it's kind of like, I feel like every human, and I'm not too different in that, you want to have this sense that your life matters and the thumbprint that you leave is a positive one, whether it's a one-on-one interaction with someone or more broadly speaking in humanity. And so the idea that like, hey, someday I might be able to create an invention, or in this case, fund an invention, fund and advised, that makes a difference for them. Like it feels good.
You did.
Yeah.
You definitely did.
Yes.
And in those lines, how did growing up in the Midwest, I guess, shape your lens as an investor? And I'm curious, maybe what specifically you are able to see that maybe someone that grew up in the valley, in the coast, might not be so aware of.
Yeah. So a couple different dimensions of that. So my mother was a baker, made, wedding cakes and stuff out of her house. My father was an iron worker for the Chicago Transit Authority. And so part of it was location, part of it is, who your parents are and what they do. So I think, from them, I learned like the creativity, the artistry, like how craftsmanship really makes a difference. You could take a cake and make it super special through the artistry. And then my dad, I grew up riding motorcycles, I think 5 years old when I rode my first dirt bike. And I had, he made me fix my carburetor when it broke. And so you kind of like get this sense of, oh, this is not a magical device that you just kick the crank and then it starts going. It's like there's a piston in here and there's rings around the piston that go inside the cylinder. And then, there's a spark plug and the gas flows in there from the carburetor and then sparks and explodes. And then, you got to get the exhaust out. So I think just that thinking of like, how do you fix stuff? How does stuff work? Really set that curiosity in me. But I think the blessing of growing up in Midwest, or really anywhere outside of the big economic centers, is like most of the world operates in a certain way. And that is like all of these people who help each other, handyman. And that you can kind of say like, well, that just that model, that sort of small economy, drop that down 1,000 or 10,000, I don't know how many cities in the world, like everybody needs all those services. You got to get your hair cut. You're going to probably have a toothache at some point. It's sort of like the common patterns. If you grow up there, like that's all you know. So you grow up here and it's like, I can build a product and I can ship that to 1 million people. That never would have occurred to me that was within the realm of possibility growing up. So I guess just that feeling of what does everybody need, not as what, some small percentage of the population need, but what does everybody need was important. And then, we were a reasonably economically constrained household. So the idea of like high utilization, low waste is very deep within me. I hate wasting time. I hate wasting money. And that's shaped a lot of my investment philosophy, which is not media and gaming oriented. It's called utilitarian consumer. So how do you let people do what they want to do better, faster, cheaper?
Yeah. When we started, you mentioned being aware of your own biases, and you just touched briefly on that. Obviously, I think San Francisco, living in this city or the Bay Area more in general, can be a very interesting glimpse into the future because the people that live here are obviously early adopters. They like to test technologies. Just what you were describing earlier. People like here like to try new products, try new apps, what you name it. But it can also be like a bubble, or like in the end, the rest of the world isn't necessarily like that.
Yeah.
I guess in your investing, how do you check for that? Making sure you're not investing in a consumer behavior that might apply here, but not outside.
Yeah. I really am fond of this framework, jobs to be done, which I won't go into excruciating detail, but you think of like, there's a consumer, they're in this situation, they desire something to get some expected outcome, right? So you can craft a job to be done statement around those three parts. And so I think when you see something that's people are talking about, or it gets buzzy, you're like, all right, let me try and craft that statement. And at this point, it's more of an intellectual exercise, but I'm very quickly like, okay, what's the utility function within the person's life that's making them want that? So there's a lot of things that are just novelty. And not to pick on another media company, but like I remember Clubhouse came out, and my wife, Jennifer, who you know, she was like on Clubhouse every night. And if you come up with the job to be done of Clubhouse at the time, and again, they could have taken it in a bunch of different directions, but you came up with Clubhouse at the time, it was like, when I'm bored and or feeling lonely at night, I want to engage in, some audio entertainment experience to keep me entertained and educate me. That would be like a job to be done statement. You say, okay, here's Clubhouse is this one product. So now you say, okay, that's the job. What are all of the different offerings in the market that compete for the consumer's attention for that job? And the ones that were most obvious to me are like podcasts, YouTube videos, long form, prepared entertainment content, audiobooks, going out. Yeah. So, at the time it was COVID, right? So, okay, nobody was going out. So even there, you say within the COVID construct, you're still any form of digital entertainment. And I jumped on a couple with Clubhouse, and it was like, all right, this is like 90% boring and 5 or 10%, there's something in here. If I go to, Enzo's podcast, 100% of the time, it's going to be like engaging. You've edited it well. You've been thoughtful in your content preparation. There's a reason why the media markets work the way they do, where people do research and prepare, and you kind of think of, and then you edit, and you have the cutting room floor has a bunch of stuff that didn't make the utility cut of like, anyway, long way of saying that I never felt like a synchronous audio experience would ever be able to compete in a sustainable way with all of those kind of pre-prepared audio formats. So I was like, so it felt like, okay, this is never going to be the best thing at this job, right? Like once the novelty wears off, people, and you see this with toys, you see this with games. Games by definition are competing with an entertainment budget. I'm bored and I want to be entertained for some amount of time, but the game gets boring after some amount of time. And so you move on to other things. So I really like to find, take by contrast some of the companies you mentioned, like Chime. All right, everybody needs a bank account. If you have a job or you make any kind of money, and you want that bank to serve you well and to not steal your money. And you think of the whole financial services ecosystem, and much of the world is, okay, how do I get the person to trust me with their money and then steal as much of it as I can without them leaving? That's like the banking model. And so Chime, when we saw that, it was like, I had a bank and I was happy with it, and banks serve wealthier customers well. But to see like, wow, okay, because of their inversion of the business model, they went to like using interchange from your debit card spend as the core economic engine of the business versus, these fines and fees. Because they had that, it was like alignment with what the consumer wanted. So the more money you make and the more you spend out of your Chime account, the happier they are. So they really kind of are on the side of the customer. Anyway, you look out across the US and you're like, man, there's a lot of people being gouged by banks. This is a better product. And it's just a matter of time before it gets out there and grows more in the marketplace.
It's funny. In a sense, it sounds like an impact investor in the sense that you're targeting like very basic needs and that are permanent.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Are not novelty. And that was an interesting observation about Clubhouse, because at the time, a lot of people actually highlighted the authenticity of the platform as its strength,
Yeah.
and why people liked it. But you're like, in the end, you don't want to spend, I don't know, the 80% of the time you spend on one product or media to be, I don't know, rehearsed or wasted. Yeah.
Yeah, like of all the authentic motive. I mean, Joe Rogan, Enzo, you guys do
There's a limit to
of
that.
pulling out authenticity from your, but then you chop out all the other stupid things I say.
So let's start getting deeper into your consumer investing framework. And I read this large presentation that you prepared. I think that was last year. No, you prepared it many years ago, but you've had multiple versions of it, and it's really good. And what I love about it is that I feel like there's this, I don't know how to say, like image that people have of consumer investing as almost like catching, like lightning in a bottle, right? It's like finding something that you have no idea how it came out, and then you just grab it, and then hopefully you put a lot of money to that company, and then you have the next phase. So it seemed more like as art in a sense, compared to the more traditional, let's say, B2B SaaS investing, which is more formulaic, but you've still managed to put a framework into it. So I guess tell us a bit of how you came out to that framework. Did you already have the framework when you first invested in Uber, for example, or was it something that you started developing as you saw some patterns in your investing?
Yeah, that's a great question. The framework came later. To answer that question first, kind of looking over the patterns and seeing, it's a little bit like, I don't think there's like a right way to invest, but there's like what's a right way for you to invest, and everybody has their own style. But I think when I started, I started pretty early in the venture business, right? 2002 is when I joined Menlo Ventures, came on to do enterprise software. Enterprise software was dead. Like all the companies I looked at were down and to the right, which, as you know, is not what gets new investments made. And so I was like, I like this job. I want to keep it. I better find something new to focus on. And I spun up what was called broadband services. We had a process at the time. We called it SEM, Systematic Emerging Market Selection. And it was like, all right, broadband penetration is getting to interesting levels in the home. What are all the information services that are going to be able to move over the broadband pipes? They used to have to come over a satellite or an antenna or one of these other things. And there was an example where it's once you see the explosion of video on the internet and the video can get over the broadband pipe, I knew, it took the 3 or 4 megabit per second stream, and then you could light up like a TV. It's like, okay, well, people love their TV. It's comfortable. It's a couch. They're going to sit on that, but they're going to want that internet of video. And so, you start like sort of smell the problems there, and then invested in one called Cinema Now that was streaming movies over the internet before Netflix, and failed. So we lost all the money there. But that led me to Roku. And then the firm kind of became the largest shareholder in Roku. I was on that board for 10 years to go public. But you say at that point in time, it was like the underpinnings of the framework were there, which is like, all right, there's a need. There's a common behavior pattern in humanity, 40 hours a week of TV, big screen, couch, bear next to you, whatever, like certain behavior, like that's behavior is not going to change. And then here's this new change in technology, right? Like higher bandwidth into the home and this explosion of internet video, right? People are uploading videos. You can digitize all videos. So it was sort of like an intuition, I think, that led me to that. But again, drawing on us earlier, kind of efficiency and whatnot. Later on, I looked at all of the great investments that we made together as a firm in consumer, and then the ones that I missed and I really felt badly about.
Okay.
And I looked over that list and tried to come up with, okay, what do these things all have in common? And that's when call them the 4 pillars at Menlo came to be. So the widespread unmet need. So that's like kind of the fundamental, there is a need there. And then the uniquely capable team, what is it about this particular set of founder that's going to be able to solve that problem, right? Because different founders are good for different problems, right? You take a Larry Page and a Sergey Brin who started Google and send them to Pinterest, probably not going to do great, their best work. So uniquely capable team, compelling unit economics, right? At the end of the day, enterprise value is future cash flows, and then scalable, repeatable growth. So those four were the components of the business. And then from that, I tried to come up with what I think of as like a first principles approach. So what leads you to finding the companies that match all of those pillars? And the biggest set of first principles. So you think of what's a first principle, right? The laws of physics. Once you know them, you can apply them into a bunch of different situations. I know what's going to happen to that cup if I throw it, or if something's going to fall out of the sky at a certain rate. So what are the first principles of consumer investing? That was the challenge. And it basically led us down this path, starting with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where you say, all right, we're basically the same from a behavioral perspective, basically the same humans we've been for, some would argue, 50,000 to 100,000 years. We're the same. Yep. A certain amount of gray matter, Homo erectus, certain stature, certain capabilities, tool building, and other things like that.
Very Harari of you.
Yeah, and we're still humans that are driving the majority of the economy. So you say like, all right, the same gray matter existed then as it does now, and that's driving these economic decisions. What motivates that gray matter? Okay, you take Maslow, security and safety, and you move all the way up to self-actualization. So look at any big company, and I can map back to you what is the fundamental need, or in some case, the exploit in human nature, right? Preying on the 7 deadly sins that led, and we try to steer away from the exploits towards the good part. But what is it that's serving in the need of that person? We still all want relationships. You want those be transportation, clothing. I want to be proud of myself. I want to educate myself. I want to protect myself, security, safety. I need to eat, right? So that whole consumer wallet has essentially stayed the same for, forever. But what changes is these underlying, we call them ingredient technologies, that change the playing field. Okay, so think of like commerce. Okay, back in Rome, there was a marketplace.
Yep.
And people would go and, hey, I need my spices and I need my tea and I need some meat. And it was just logistically a lot easier running from place to place, trying to assemble your day's food. You meet in the marketplace. And then there was department stores, and then there was online stores. And someday there'll be like drone delivery, like all of these major disruptions. Walmart came in, first Sears Roebuck, and then Walmart, and then Amazon, right? All of these things had a window of time where all of a sudden it was possible to meet that commerce need in a better, faster, cheaper way showed up. So I kind of believe like the world has right now at this very moment, thousands of problems that are now ready to be solved, especially with AI and the interesting ingredients that offers. But it takes really hard work and smart people to look at, okay, like where does things still suck in life right now? And then how do I use these new technologies to fix what sucks?
Before going into AI as an ingredient technology, I think it's worth playing with the idea of how it might affect the Maslow pyramid or the behaviors, because investors invest for 10, 20 years ahead.
Yeah.
And you mentioned like the idea of common behaviors that don't change over time, right? Yep. But we're at a moment where, you might argue, hey, people will start changing a lot, some of their behaviors. The most, I think one of the low-hanging fruits as a concept is the idea that, hey, in a world with AI, robots, and significant amounts increasements in productivity, people might start working less, right? Spending less time working. 4 hours, 6. We'll get to the 4-hour week, the Tim Ferriss dream. But there may be something along those lines. So I'm curious, what have you thought? Potentially, what behaviors might change in a world where we work less, and then maybe we spend more time on arts, with family, with friends, or maybe something else?
So first, I need to argue a little bit with the premise of the question. So you're a venture capitalist. Do you still use like Google or the internet to?
Yeah.
Okay. Were you a venture capitalist before Google existed?
No.
Okay. Imagine how slow that would be.
Oh, yeah.
To not be able to I can look up a company in, sub-second, right?
Yep.
I can learn about a space in a couple minutes. So those tools came, they made me more effective at deploying capital. Am I working much less?
Or
No.
much more.
We're working more.
Yeah.
Like part of, I think when, as human, you're like confronted with this opportunity and wow, there's like opportunity, like you kind of want to, and hopefully jobs will become more fun. So I don't know that some people will take advantage of it and work less. Some people will take advantage of it and work 5 or 6 jobs at a time.
Yep.
See those people, and then they just discover what they are.
But going back to the beginning, do you think that's reflective of actually most people?
I think most people,
Because I hear that argument, and to me, sometimes it sounds like a very Silicon Valley argument. Okay, I can work 10 times more.
It's true.
But we
Yeah,
live in
most
a city where
people-
people love working.
and I don't know the actual statistics. That'd be really interesting to have that. But like, you can't go like, do you live to work or work to live? Like most
Yes.
people work to live.
Yep.
But you still need to, at least until major legislation with like universal basic income or something like that is passed, you still need to be a productive member of the economy or come from money in order to live the life that you want to live. And there's all these cool things, right? Like you want the new iPhone and everybody enjoys travel and all that stuff. So I feel like generally speaking, yes, like the economy is going to get more efficient, more productive. Many things will be unshackled. We'll live longer. We'll be healthier. Human productivity, I do feel like I'm an optimist, is going to be unleashed. But I don't know that it will immediately translate into all of a sudden people are working 20-hour weeks. But let's just say they are. Okay. Even today, there's plenty of people who spend plenty of time watching Netflix and screwing around. The leisure markets are there. You could argue like the leisure markets will grow, there'll be more travel. I think of like, where's augmented reality and virtual reality headed, right? Like, there's Ready Player One, all that type. Like at some point you're going to be able to essentially be other places, see other things, and like really feel like you're there. But that's more technologies that are coming. I don't know.
I guess I'm asking more generally in this consumer thesis that you, or framework that you shared the presentation with me. You have this slide where you divide how people spend their time.
Yeah.
And there's, I think that 15% at work, X amount of time at school, X amount of time with family, whatever.
Yeah.
So what I'm curious is if you have any observation or expectation that there might be some second order effect of AI on how people allocate their time.
Two answers to that. So one is, if I said, Enzo, you got no constraints, like where do you spend your next hour? Nobody's counting on you. You've got total freedom. What's the most authentic expression of you that would bring you joy that you're going to do in the next hour?
Play soccer.
Okay. So there you go. I think as you reduce the amount of time and resources consumed by the monotony of life, which we all have, I got to pay my bills. I got to do this. I got to do that. Taxes, I was lining up the tax payments on, it was 20 minutes of my life like gone.
Yep.
So I think as that goes down, whatever the places of people's passion, I think will go up for sure. And then the other thing that I'm really excited to see unfold is this idea of an AI coach who is essentially watching your life, hearing what you do, seeing what you do. And I don't know, people call it like, doing the work as you age. You think of, you're young, you're just trying to like, I got to get a job and prove myself important in the world. At some point, you're really like, wait a minute, that's not the answer. I need to go on this process of self-discovery and what am I about and what's going to make me feel good on my deathbed? Who are the relationships I care most about? How am I going to invest in those? And I feel like there's a potential as AI evolves to be this like coach that sits next to you, listens to you, understands what your goals are, asks you questions sometimes. And ultimately, just the way a wonderful mentor, hopefully you or many people have like had a mentor in their life, like short conversation with that person made a big difference in your life. And so imagine if you had that person or a preponderance of those people with you every step of the way. It just hopefully will help people lead a more authentic life. And so I think there's going to be more expression, more software created, more music created, more movies and entertainment experiences, gaming. There's all of these things that I think there's a lot of just like, I got to do the job and take a call center. There's probably some people there that like love being helpful, and I've talked to them and you can feel it, right?
Yep.
Here's this person, like she really
every once in a while
wants to help me, figure out this thing I need to do at the bank. And they're like, you have a wonderful day. And you just like feel that energy. But my average experience on a call center call is not that. And okay, if all of those people are just replaced by an algorithm that knows, okay, I can look up transactions, I can do that, and this is happening at pretty much all customer service centers now. It's like they call it the deflection rate. Some percentage of the easier calls are being handled by AI, and that percentage will continue to increase. Okay, hopefully we can find a way for all of those people then to be retrained, move towards an occupation or something that is more matched to what they really feel good about doing in the world and makes other people happy, right? So kind of a crazy example of this was I was in London for a family trip a while ago. And you drive through all these fields and there's cows and people serving tea and tea shops and whatnot. And then we got in this little town and there was this place called Let's Go Potty.
Okay.
And it was a pottery shop. Okay. But you go in and it's like the proprietors.
That's a great name, by the way.
Yeah. They were living their best life, right? They had all these customers there. They were teaching them how to bake pottery and glaze and kiln. And the kids had a blast and the energy was like palpable there. And I was thinking to myself, like, this place does not need to exist. If it just didn't exist, I would have never noticed it. But because those entrepreneurs had that fire in their soul to create this pottery shop, all of a sudden there was this like joyous reason to be with other people and be creative and have community. And so I feel as the economy evolves, I'm hoping there's like more and more of that, right? Like we've grown too far away from each other. There should be more community experiences, soccer teams, the just like expression of your own creativity. There's just a lot of little ways where you go back to that Midwestern, what's every town need? Like a bunch of ways in which we can be there for each other. Healthcare services, right? What if more people were in healthcare and you could have faster care and more compassionate care and those people were being trained? So yeah, it could go on, but I think it could be a beautiful, the more monotony and stuff that just gets done for us, the more time, hopefully we have species to just spend on things that leads towards that self-actualization at the top of the pyramid.
Picking on that idea, how do you think the future of social media looks different from what it's today?
Social media?
Yes. Or will it be the same?
It's a complicated question because there's the distribution aspect of social media of, hey, if I like a piece of content and you and I are friends, you might like a piece of content. So the algorithms are out there and there's rails that just,
it's like,
think of when Facebook.
Like a new TV, basically, you're describing.
Yeah.
Like that,
or there was like a workflow improvement, but there's also this like diabolical preying on people's attention and kind of dopamine addiction component, which is what steered me away from it in many, I saw all of these things early on. And I was like, do I really want to bring that into the world? Like, as an investor, it's like you're on a 10-year mission. Is this something I want to work on for 10 years? And it wasn't for me, but more people, we want more visits. We want them to stay longer on each visit. So we want to click on more ads during each day. So those are like very clear KPIs. This is going to make the business better. And then you go into a big organization, take like a Meta or something like that. Okay, everybody go move your KPIs. And if you're moving your KPIs, you're doing good work. And if you're not, like, we're going to find somebody else who can move your KPIs. So what happened is you take that media consumption to not what's best for the person, but what's best for the company and how much of that attention can they grab and how many things that you don't need can they get you to buy. That's not good, right? So one of the other things I'm excited about with AI is, okay, and this gets into what's the future of social is, let's just say, and there's like a certain amount of trust involved here, but let's just say, take your email inbox, which is a big part of everybody's media appetite. I think it's 20 hours a week on average, people in their email inbox. And just be like, you know what? Inbox, I'm spending too much time on email and it's not feeding my soul. Just give me 1 hour a day of the best emails. And, if there's articles, summarize, like the movie Her, right? Like go through everything, you kind of triage it for me and then just give me the good stuff. Make sure I don't miss something from my boss. And so that could apply to your media budget too, right? Like you should only be seeing that if you say like, right now, I really want to learn more about AI or neural nets or this or the other thing, or I really want to be a better husband, or
having
really
a budget
of
social media consumption.
Yeah. Okay. The algorithms could also figure out what's the highest quality content and just not tempt me with crap, feed me instead. And it just takes a lot of willpower now. And you see the disciplined people do that, right? And they keep moving towards their goals. And then there's a lot of other people who get tempted by things and fall off the track, which I feel like life has more for them if they were able to control that. So AI could control that. I definitely feel like AI has a role in reinventing relationships in many ways. I talked about the AI coach. Imagine if people
AI
joked,
marriage counselor.
yeah, but you know, you got to be very careful here
Because people are using ChatGPT
people
for that.
do not want to be recorded all the time. But let's just say I made this decision. I want to be better. And I feel like this is at the root of all good marriage counselors is don't worry about the other person. Worry about yourself. What do you control? What do you want to work on? What ownership can you take in things that didn't go well? But let's just say I had a device I could put on my wrist or an app I could run on my phone. And it was like, just listen to me, nobody else. I don't want one word of what my wife says or what Enzo says or anything else. Listen to me and don't bother me that much. But once a week,
That's an interesting
pull out 3 or
choice.
4 snippets of things you feel like I could have done differently. And here's who I am. I want to be, somebody who gives joy to others. I want to be inspiring. You can kind of express your goals, and then we're not all capable of living a 24/7 life aligned with our goals. So, an AI should be able to help me live in alignment with my goals and, become aware of behaviors I'm not totally conscious of. Ooh, you did this and this and this. So there's that aspect of it. There's, just
That would be a
I feel
great
like
product idea. I would pay for that.
like that will happen, right? When you see something like that's an example of a company. It's not if that happens, it's when that happens. Like it's just too useful. And people spend a lot of money on marriage counselors that could definitely at least be cut down. So that's one. And then this idea of like, how do you, even at the early stages of a relationship, how are you better in that relationship? So if I could remember more things about you, your kids, or you don't have kids, but right? Like, oh yeah, Enzo lifts, and I like knowing that we all as humans want to be known.
Yeah.
You feel familiar. Who hasn't forgotten a name at some point? There's going to be a point where you'll never forget a name.
Yeah.
You'll never forget a nugget of conversation.
The personal CRM promise.
Yeah, but without the work, right? Like the person CRM has failed for decades. Yeah, because it's like, all right, I got to keep putting time into the system. This is like the ROI theory. I got to keep putting time into the system. And then there's one day where that little piece of nugget of information, a month from now is going to give me the payoff. But that's not the way it works. It has to be like short-term payoff. So anyway, I do feel like it's going to help people be better in both like acquaintance-like relationships around the office, or, I'm on 10 boards and like, I don't always remember everybody around the table, and there should be assistance with that. So there's a bunch of stuff to do in social, but I feel like, just helping people be more authentically who they want to be, and that feedback loop is definitely coming. So take kind of any consumer category, like AI for nutrition, AI for exercise, right? Like all of these things that are cumbersome to manage right now, I feel like once it gets to know your preferences, it can streamline a lot of these things for you.
So you think that a lot of those, which again, you just said, like they're very cumbersome to manage, will probably be unlocked as new markets? And I think about nutrition, like MyFitnessPal, right? It was probably like a great user base. But I feel like it probably never landed where people would have expected it.
Yeah.
And I guess going back to this idea you had about the ROI, right? It required a lot of work to manage. So you seem to look for opportunities, and it's like maybe past promises of consumer products that were not actually delivered because of that ROI, and now AI actually unlocks that and
totally
makes it, okay, now it makes sense to actually do it.
That's a great way of putting it. You say, what was the job to be done for MyFitnessPal? And it's basically like, this is my version of it. I want to eat as unhealthy as possible and still look good. So MyFitnessPal, like, it keeps me honest and like tracking, but it is a lot of work. And like you type it in burger and there's like 57 burgers that show up. Yeah. And we have a portfolio company called Alma. And it's just like, you say all the stuff and then you take a picture or you type it in, it's all natural language. And then it's dinner time and you're like, what do I need to eat tonight to give me some meal ideas to meet my macro goals or something. And, you know, spits out a bunch of those. And you can imagine that push this button and order from Instacart, or push this button and get it from DoorDash, or push this button and get this product you can prepare at home. So just the things that you kind of like, do, but take a number of steps and are cumbersome, and you probably don't end up with the best result. AI, as it, you know, gets to know you and becomes more capable, should be able to just help streamline all that.
I think it was last week or a couple of days ago, ChatGPT released this like very descriptive graph of how people are using ChatGPT. I'm sure you saw it. And I bring this up because maybe it's like an interesting way of looking at verticals that ChatGPT might be a good, I guess, solution, but not get it all the way to the end, till the end. Do you agree with this? Like a source of where are behaviors that I might invest in a company to actually serve better than what ChatGPT does, or the opposite in the sense that it might not be a great category to invest in?
Yeah. It is. We did a consumer AI survey, and it showed the breadth of use cases are pretty crazy. And like any one of these use cases, no more, it was like 5,000 consumers, no more than 25% used it for any one thing. But in aggregate, I think it's up to, you know, low 60% of the population has used it in the last week. So you say like, wow, that's just, okay, if no one of them is 25% or more. So people are finding different things and not finding other things. And ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, these are like the incumbents that are already sitting there and have the query. So I think it comes down to, if the thing that you need is done well enough by the AI, existing general purpose AI, you're going to do it. So we're looking for those pockets where, you know, the plus is going to be 10x better. The nutrition is an easy example, right? Because it's like, all right, I need a persistent record over time. It's really good that it sees the things I've eaten in the past. And yes, there's ChatGPT memory. There's visualization. So if there's novel ways of showing you stuff or trends or pictures, that speaks more broadly to like a data moat, right? Of my personal history, or something that I trust with my passwords, or something that I trust with my email account, or something I trust with something else. Like all of a sudden they have access to privileged data that not everybody does.
So I want to go back to robots and hardware, because you particularly have invested in a bunch of hardware companies, right? So I guess, how are you layering AI towards that opportunity? Maybe what are some opportunities that you wouldn't have paid attention to before AI, or at least before LLMs, and now you're spending time on, or at least paying more attention to?
I'd probably say just in kind of the intersection of AI and hardware, there's still plenty of hardware stuff that's not AI native, right? Electrification of transportation, or we've got like a silent electric propulsor company that can make quiet drones and stuff over time. So you imagine like I'm on a train or on a bus, or I'm in a busy room, and I can use voice, essentially, you know, quote unquote voice as an input, but I'm not speaking aloud. So that's an example. Okay, that's going to take a little bit of hardware to do, and a lot of algorithms, but hardware as well. So that's one. Two, you can imagine new form factors of interaction, right? Like
that's tied to the neural link physics in a sense.
I mean, that's an extreme example.
Okay.
Of you drill a hole in the head, but no, there's some that just use like the kind of EMG from the skin.
Okay.
There's others that use different approaches to see what muscles are being activated and whatnot. So call that just like an IO mechanism, input output. Then there's like the form factors. So in her, it's just an earbud, right? There's not even a screen, and the earbud's able to then use screens around it. I'm home and I can take over my TV. So that's kind of an interesting, more like an Alexa, or is it more like an earbud, or is it more like a phone? Who knows? We'll see. But I do feel like there's opportunity there, like the way in which you interact and want to go cross data domains with AI now feels like it's leaving an opening for a new hardware form factor. So
is that because Apple hasn't been executing well on that intersection?
Quite possibly.
Because they're really good in hardware. And you would expect that as a space for the AirPod, I don't know, for instance, too.
Yeah.
Like what if you had a little camera to the AirPod?
But it's deep, like down to the OS level. Like all the apps have their own sandboxes, right? There's not
organizationally
data
also like
across,
very siloed.
Autonomy of moving things, right? That's I took a Waymo over here. Just these things that can drive, control, keep you more safe, right? Like the ADAS type of like safety features relate to hardware. And then in the robotics category is like, all right, you see where you think of like a Roomba Gen 1 consumer robotics. And, these humanoid robots directly just an enterprise setting. I can hire, fewer people to move these packages or pick and pack things. So the models are capable of doing pretty incredible things now in terms of coordinating motion, maintaining balance, like all these things that were just really hard to do. That circa like Boston Dynamics days, right?
Yeah.
Those things are getting down into a couple $1,000 type of form factor. So that's going to open up a whole bunch of new applications that we're interested in.
Which of those markets excites you the most? Like you think that could be like a $1 trillion market in a sense? Like something I'm thinking about is like, I don't know, robots at home.
Yeah.
What's the 10x version of Roomba at home?
Yeah.
And it could be like a brand new line of appliances.
Right.
Could be robots, right? I know
Yeah.
the robot for washing my clothes or the robot for washing.
Yeah, I mean, we could all come up with a
dishes.
list of here's all the things I do that I don't love doing.
Yeah.
I personally like to do the dishes. It's very therapeutic. And I know when I'm done and the kitchen's clean. And so maybe I would keep that one, but I don't love picking up clothes.
Yeah.
I don't like picking up dog poo on the porch. So there's all these other things that you think of. Okay, just go down that list. Cooking, something could prepare all the vegetables and whatever else. I don't know. I feel like this too is not a if it's when, and there's like the home robot form factor, but there's also the automation in the economy, which is I'm getting the benefits as a consumer of the robotics and the automation without necessarily having it in my house.
Okay.
You may have heard Travis talk about cloud kitchens or
Yes.
whatever. It's like, all right, if robots can just make exactly the salad that I want or the Chipotle bowl that I want or whatever, and like a heartbeat, and then it hands off to the equivalent of a Waymo or a Neuro that drives it to me, and all of a sudden I have a fast, fresh, cheap meal.
Yeah, basically do to kitchen ownership or cooking at home what Uber did to the car, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely like multiple ways in which this can happen, and maybe it happens inside the house or outside the
There
house.
are new things, like I mentioned, Whisper. So I do think that you can kind of see a path now to the flying car.
Yep.
That if I wanted to get to the coast, push a button and autonomously flies me up over the hills and drops me in Half Moon Bay or something like that. Right?
like a jetpack.
Yeah, but it's gonna be autonomous and it's got to be quiet and it's gonna be probably electric. You're not gonna need like jet fuel. So what robotics is gonna be able to do in the next decade is pretty exciting.
To wrap up in this discussion of sectors and I guess applications we've had, I want to go back to productivity. You were talking about agents for your different, I guess, work or jobs, but also for email. And I guess you tried to build a company in this space over 10 years ago, Handle, which was like, I feel like in a way like a superhuman meets Jira, right? I guess based on that experience and the fact that personal productivity has been a challenging space or in general, I guess besides Google Drive mainly, right? Like most people have built products with maybe a huge user bases, I don't know, Evernote, but then they were acquired by maybe for most, I guess, big funds in the Valley, like a mediocre amount of money. Well, we now have Notion, which we'll see how it goes. But again, it's like those type of markets where people are constantly trying to build new things, especially in the Valley, because obviously people are here very like work oriented, so you care a lot about productivity. But then once they go out into the market, especially once they leave the Valley, in most cases, nothing has happened. So I guess based on your experience building Handle, what you've seen in the personal productivity space, what makes you optimistic about AI or probably skeptical as well?
The optimistic part, we didn't talk about AI helping people code. And in any of these productivity-oriented apps, like it's a razor-thin margin between it's good enough and it's not. And if it's not good enough, even a little bit, you just dirty my hands with this crappy technology. So Superhuman had the 100 millisecond rule, right? But so it's okay. I'm optimistic in that AI can help everybody make better products. They'll be better designed. They'll be, the algorithms will be more optimized. So the software should be higher quality. AI is the first technology that can take my existing behavior patterns and then use that. You think of what's the fundamental difference with AI? It's we're not programming computers anymore. We're training them.
Yep.
Right. Like
To
they
act.
are, yeah, the LLMs have trained off of this corpus of internet data, and they're being reinforcement loop trained by experts now. You think of the Surge and the Scales, and these are like really smart people in their fields that are getting questions and giving the answers back, and the master brain can learn it all. But the AIs can make decisions that are good based on a lot of subjective criteria. That's what the human mind does. And if you think of decision fatigue in a day or what drains you in a day, it's not like you're in this flow state and you're doing this exciting stuff. It's no, I'm
Context switch.
cutting up the video and I'm like looking to, oh, geez, I had, 1 second forward, 1 second back and chopping that out. Okay. So I don't know. And then you go further out, like this concept of super intelligence, right? It's like, okay, once it's kind of, smart and capable and can do other things, like what can it do then? Who knows? It's going to be fun to watch.
Do you have skepticism about the category at all because of AI, or you're very optimistic?
There's a lot of money flowing at very high prices, and a lot of it will be lost. So think of the internet.
But that's like a more broad observation of AI, more than productivity particularly.
Yes, skepticism just in productivity. I don't know, maybe the skeptical position would be like, maybe we're productive enough already, right? What if what we all need to live better lives isn't productivity? What if it's actually some rails to like, oh, you're getting stressed out, like time for a break, like whether they're gentle nudges or locking out you from, devices, or just bringing these like exhibited but unrecognized behavior patterns up to you. So I don't know. I mean, I kind of think like how many productivity gains have come with the internet and mobile devices and all these things. And like people are seem more stressed out and violent and less social empathetic discourse. And so that's the counter to more productivity is actually what we need is maybe more empathy.
I want to read you a quote from the founder of Canva, and would love to hear your take. So here he just said on a podcast, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, many AI startups today suffer the early adopter syndrome. It's easy to win over Twitter or Product Hunt. What's hard is selling to middle America or mainstream Europe. That's the real test. Going from 50 million to $1 billion isn't about product, it's about distribution. I guess looking at AI startups today, what's your feeling about that?
Well, I wouldn't say it's easy to win to get to 50 million or easy to win on Twitter. Like people are still very fickle. So there's I guess two different components of it. One is when somebody uses it, does it become the best way to get that thing accomplished in their life? And then does that behavior pattern reoccur? So that gives you a retained user. So you think of any consumer product as what's the atomic unit of value add in the universe? It's like this one person gets this one value and that value reoccurs in their life and they come back to that product.
Okay.
So just getting your very one customer that's not your mom or dad who kind of like sticks with it, like that's a big deal. Okay. Yeah. Then, them finding the next 10 or 100 or whatever. So that's just sort of like value creation. Then there's ubiquity. How do you get out to lots of people and give them that? Let's just say you've created the best product in the world. Now you've got to go get that in front of everybody and get into their habit loop. There's multiple components to that too. Like how do you get that first impression? So we all would love to have these K greater than 1 viral companies.
Yep.
That's not always viable. So, but you can steer a product in ways that make it more viral.
Yep.
Take the nutrition app, recipe sharing, or maybe I can convince
a challenge with friends.
Or I convince some product company that already has a bunch of customers that like, hey, you should endorse us. So that cooperation can give you distribution. Distribution can come from K greater than 1. Distribution can come from monetization, right? That exceeds what it costs you to go acquire customers. That has partly to do with product quality, partly to do with your onboarding experience. But a notion you brought up, I'm a Notion bull. I think it's really created a uniquely
A fan base.
facile fabric that's quite capable. Yeah, and it had a really nicely done paywall, right? I don't know if you kind of you start using it. You're like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'll do this, do that. Oh, I can drag a picture into my notes, so I can embed this thing, and like I feel real organized, even though I've been using this for a couple of days. All of a sudden, you hit the 1,000th block.
Yeah.
You got to pay now. It's shoot. Okay. You got my money. Evernote didn't do that. Yeah. Maybe Evernote could have had a beautiful business model, but they just never hit the right paywall. Once you have a right paywall and you have a retaining product, all of a sudden you have this beautiful thing called LTV, lifetime value. Yep. What's the margin per month? How many months do they last? That gives you, now you take that LTV and you recycle it back into CAC. So now I can outspend people on the socials or wherever, Google ads, to get in front of people. So I don't think of distribution as either have distribution or not.
Okay.
I think of it as like this constant battle to just get out to more people cheaper and get a higher percentage of those that then get exposed to your experience to get to that wow moment where they feel the value. And let's say we've all downloaded these apps where you have 10 onboarding screens. You know, not everybody makes it through 10. If it was 3, maybe. If it was 1, and
time
then
to value.
Yeah. So, Uber needed no onboarding screens. It was like, open up the app, I see a map, there's a car driving around, hit order car.
It's almost like Google Maps, right?
Yeah.
It's like
so like the winners will be the ones that just really, I think it's super down to the essence of the value out of the product, and then bring that front and center. And there's like kind of no other way to miss that. And then it becomes delightful and people tell each other, and hopefully you can make some money off it.
Do you think AI affects in any way the distribution toolkit, let's call it, or maybe playbooks? If you want?
Yeah, for sure. Just think of what's the existing distribution toolkit, videos, right? Yep. Yeah, I mean, you taught me about how important like that thumbnail image is. Yeah. And it's pretty hard to put together a compelling video or an audio track and all that thing. So just the AI creative tooling for sure. I think it's just going to make that much more accessible to a lot more people. They'll be able to make quality. They'll be able to find their audience. There's just traditional machine learning. Okay, let's test 10 or 100 or 1,000 different creatives and see which perform the best. And then, so I think the process of finding your growth unlock will get better. The ability to speak to more audiences and exactly their words will get better. Yeah, I think it's going to
something that I think about is where we'll see a big consumer company growing through online channels, or like, because what you're describing, obviously, with AI-generated content, obviously the content, organic, YouTube, podcasting itself, any other social media, it's going to get more saturated, right? But a lot of low-quality stuff. Yeah. I had a friend that told me, like, AI has democratized mediocrity in content, which I thought was a really good observation. But so there'll still be a power law that people that actually, I know the Mr. Beast will continue to be Mr. Beast, but you will still see a surge in quantity. And I know it just, makes it harder to win the attention of a consumer. And I'm just curious. I think it's like we might see something offline popping on as a.
Yeah, the aggregate attention grows with the population, right? The available minutes of attention.
Yeah.
And that's not super fast.
Yeah. And I think like Notion, Product Hunt had very interesting like community, I would say, motions where they build almost like a franchise and you could literally be a leader and open like a chapter in your own city. I remember doing that in Mexico City with Product Hunt. So I feel like, again, as the online channel continues to get saturated, something around those lines might be interesting for companies to explore. Obviously, the challenge is how do you scale to start up in a moats. What are, I guess, for founders building consumer today, what should they focus on to build a durable company as AI is basically reshaping how software is built?
So I mentioned this one earlier, but the data mode, like what's really important data, whether it's newly entered data or data you're able to build enough trust to get them to, here's all my financial information. That's not something you're going to give to any internet service. So there's like a data access moat. The LLMs are, I think I heard them called like, they're like geniuses with no memory. Right. And now they're getting some memory, but like you need the context and whatever else to be valuable. So the data moat, there's definitely like a delightful design component that there's a lot of mediocre user interfaces out there, but you think of people who really spend time, attention to detail, like it feels like great. And then you're like, oh yeah, this is delightful to use, fun, engaging. Think of the gaming experiences, like that's still a moat because of know-how, capability, and time on task. It takes a certain type of entrepreneur to just keep grinding and making that stuff great. There's that. There's community dimensions to it, right? Like you get other people into it, or you affiliate yourself with existing communities that embrace you. There's big brands distribution. Like, okay, I'm really a helpful partner to XYZ big company that doesn't want to do this themselves.
Yeah.
And so that's a form of, if partnerships last a long time, if they're helping both people. So there's that. There's like component plays where you just become the absolute best in the world at something. I'm curious if that's going to happen in robotics, right? Like a lot of people are building the humanoids, but what if the right play is like, no, I make the best robotic eyeball.
Yeah.
And I make the best robotic hand, and I make the rest of it. And then it's just
like an NVIDIA play,
the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I would say foundation models continue to get smarter. They continue to do more. They continue to interface with other things. So it's not going to be a trivial exercise to stay ahead of them.
To your commentary on design, I always remember this story that I heard from the CEO and founder of Duolingo. Him literally stopping the meeting and saying, "Hey guys, that screen, there's 1 pixel off." Yeah. And everyone said, "No, it's okay, man. It's perfect." And then, "No, it's wrong." And then they take a look and it's actually 1 pixel off. And it's what the actual fun. That level of obsession with design can be really hard to find.
But there's something in human nature that can pick up on that. Like exactly. It just doesn't feel as good.
Correct. Yeah. But the average user is able to feel perfection from a consumer. They might not be able to explain it, but they can still feel it. Huh?
And in contrast, you see these products that people continue to use begrudgingly. The Salesforce.com comes to mind, but there will be a day where somebody comes up with a better design that can access all that data, and it's going to be a painful day for them.
Shawn, I have a few closing rapid questions. Okay. First of all, 10 years from now, in what ways do you think venture capital will look the most different because of AI?
10 years is a long time.
Do you think the industry will be the same as we know it today?
I think that the industry has been consolidating for many years. So I do feel like that trend will probably continue, right? Like different firms using different automation and
even accelerated by AI.
Yeah. So some amount of industry consolidation will continue. Of entrepreneurs to do a lot with a little is gonna, you're probably already seeing this, right? Yep. Like people vibe coding stuff up really quickly, or small teams that are able to produce incredible product, and it's just 2 or 3 people. You're like, wow, that would have been normally about 20. So the amount of capital, the countervailing force is the amount of capital that you need to produce something really special will go down. That speaks more, there's going to be more individual angels that have made money off of the AI companies that they're at. When OpenAI exits and Anthropic exits, there's going to be all this diaspora of people that are funding, and let's say they're writing a couple $100K checks, and you can actually produce a full product on that, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm definitely an optimist. And in healthcare, there's huge advances that are coming. We've got a healthcare practice, so just the higher quality of life, less disease, more intervention.
Longevity.
Yeah, longevity, right? There's just a bunch of ways I think that life will get better. And I don't know. I read a lot about the AI pessimists, like, will AI kill us all? And I understand the alignment problem, but I just feel like, we're capable enough as a species to know when we're going to cross the precipice and not kind of hand over the keys.
When it comes to AI, what are the biggest questions for which you don't have an answer?
What's the limit?
Okay.
Like, the models are way more capable than I would have thought. You take back 3 years pre ChatGPT and you say, okay, ask a general question, you get a general answer. What's going to be possible in 3 years? There's no way I would have predicted this. And I don't think, even the people who trained that first model didn't know. It was like, all right, we're going to spend all this money on compute and cross our fingers and hope.
Yep.
And it was capable. So just like, where are the bounds of human knowledge? Once the AI can start creating new knowledge, right? Think of something like fusion, where you could have free energy, electricity, desalination, right? Like robotics that could, plant and harvest crops and give everybody fresh food. I mean, it's just
singularity.
Yeah, there's like, man, I mean, you almost see the building blocks now to this like pretty incredible world.
Yeah.
And then you kind of look at the political sphere and people killing each other, or warring tribes and whatever else. You're like, how the hell could we have all this advancement and then still just our basic humanity is so screwed up? So I'm hoping that doesn't get the best of us, like the terrorists becoming more capable and being able to do more things and exact more harm using these tools as well.
Yeah.
Because that's the problem with these bad actors, is it just takes, one person
to screw
to
us
do,
up.
something really bad.
Yeah.
Scare a lot of people.
What's one question you like asking founders?
I'd like to ask lots of questions.
And one that you maybe find yourself asking frequently.
Probably like, paint the picture of the life of your ideal customer the day before they saw your product and then the day after they used your product.
Okay.
Like down to the minute.
Okay.
What were they doing? When did they use this? Why did they use this? And how is that better? Like the other day, it's that precise. Is every product, it's like, there's some moment in the day where I'm like, ooh, downloaded that app, or I bought that thing, or I went for a run with the shoes or whatever. So just like, it gives you a read on like how precisely do they understand who they're selling to? How precisely do they understand their value proposition? How well can they articulate it? How well do they understand the substitute goods for that behavior pattern? It gives you a lot of insight. And then I always love just the founding story.
Yep.
I think part of what I enjoy about investing is like the relationship with the founder and just hearing like what makes them tick and why are they doing this and why is it important to solve. And I don't love the answer of like, I want to make a lot of money. I mean, sure, everybody likes more money, but it's like, no, I like when people have this thing that's been gnawing at them and they need to be the ones to fix it in the world. Like, I think provides a lot of firepower to persevere through hard things.
Who's one founder that you admire and that you wish you had the chance to work with but didn't?
Sam Altman, I met when he was shortly after he left Stanford. He was starting this company called Looped.
Was that a consumer one?
It was a consumer company. Like we're your friends, and I didn't love that one. And
you passed
on Looped, yeah. And then when he went to run OpenAI, I was like, oh man, it's a nonprofit. We can't invest in that. So I never like checked back in, like, hey Sam, what's going on? But
it's not formally a miss.
Yeah, it is a miss. Like, I'm a big fan of accountability in life, and like I look at Airbnb, I knew about, didn't chase. YouTube, I was dismissive of their cost structure. I was like, oh God, it's so expensive to stream video, and I know they're growing and usage is growing. I sort of missed the fact that they had this customer acquisition vehicle. Chime, we gave them a term sheet the round before we ended up investing, and I didn't stretch on valuation, so we lost it and paid a lot more a year later. So
you paid for your mistakes.
There's a lot of regrets, but I don't know. Obviously, OpenAI has been an incredible company and has really defined so much consumer behavior. That's one, but we probably would not be in Anthropic if we had invested in OpenAI. That's been a great investment for the firm. I really love what that team's doing, serving the enterprise incredibly well. And I think they're really doing a good job of bringing the industry forward in a responsible way. So very happy with that one as well. But you can't win them all. The founding partner of Menlo used to say, you can't kiss all the pretty girls.
I like that one. Let's bring it home by going back to the beginning. What's the last product that gave you that wow moment that you've tried?
The last product.
Could be a Menlo company, could also be not a Menlo company.
Claude Code,
Okay.
probably. Just like having been a software developer for many decades, right? Like it's hard to write code that works and compiles and does what you want to do. And it's sort of like, it's almost shocking to me how well it can deliver something that's functional and pretty good on like how little input. Yeah, I'm not even on like really basic prompts, or you guys have Replit, there's another great example. Like you just see what these agents are able to code up and do. And it's wow, that's insane.
Thanks, Shawn.
You had one more question.
No, that was the last one.
Investor.
Oh, you have a really good memory.
Investor that I admired, of course.
Oh, for sure. You want to do it. Yeah. What's one investor you admire the most? That's such a good memory, by the way.
so two. So one.
I decided to change that question last minute.
Yeah, but it was a good one. I think, one, and obviously I'm a little biased here, but my wife, Jennifer, who started, Reach Capital, where you're employed. And there's a couple reasons why I really respect her and Reach. One of them is like, I think the best investors really deeply understand and care about the companies that they are investing in, right? I think of the ultimate positive expression of an investor relationship is I could sit next to these founders and be like truly a thought partner. I'm there to serve, I'm there to help, but I have my own vision of where this company should go that aligns with their vision, but they're slightly different. We got different inputs, and we can really collaborate in a productive way to navigate to that global optimum. And then in like another turn of the spectrum, I really appreciate courageous investing as well. And I think of and I appreciate thesis-based investing. So when I think of courage, probably Founders Fund comes to mind. Like they just do some crazy stuff with some really big checks.
Yeah.
But they're like bold missions. Or, Elon Musk in many ways is an investor. He kind of like took his winnings from PayPal or for GoTo at the beginning, recycled that into PayPal, took the winnings from PayPal, recycled that into Tesla and SpaceX. Like those are companies, the amount of capital he put in and the risk profile of those companies was so high. Yeah, and so like but he deployed that. And then on the thesis oriented side, USV, Union Square Ventures, I think just does I think so many investors now, and I'm as guilty as anybody, you're just pulled in a lot of different directions and whatever. I'll sit back in my inbox, there'll be 10 new companies that have emailed. And it's to find the time in the day and the sustained focus on a thesis area and really be thoughtful and then find the right company is a hard thing. I think it's really good for the ecosystem instead of just a bunch of people running around deploying capital, people that really are taking the time to understand and appreciate their markets and the nuances and then find the right entrepreneurs. But I think you think of like them in crypto with Coinbase, or they just have done a good job of finding the really good ones in new spaces. So appreciate them as well.
I love Fred's blog.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shawn. This was great.
Thank you, Enzo.
And
that was fun.
And I totally agree on Jennifer, obviously. I think I've told you this story. I called her on Twitter.
Okay.
And that's how I ended up at Reach. So I think Jennifer.
What was the DM? What did it say?
It was literally, hey, are you open to hire remotely or getting me or sponsoring a visa?
Amazing. I forgot to mention her great taste and talent. So to find people like Enzo, but think of how many DMs she gets.
Oh no, totally. I'm sure.
And then this is the guy I want to work with, right? Just
totally.
That we joke that she's got a radar for great people. And so
yes.
That's
and look in spaces where most people might not necessarily look.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Shawn.
All right.
Awesome.
That was fun. See you.